I'm Ned Parks, the founder of Aegis 360, and we're glad to have you with us. We are going to be recording this, so if you know of someone that would benefit from this, you're certainly welcome to send it to them later. So conducting one-on-one meetings, what the heck are they? Why do we care about them? What's the value of a one-on-one meeting? Well, the first thing we need to understand is that it improves communications. And I think that is absolutely key to really the whole idea that these things improve communications. It gets you and your direct reports, or you and your boss, if it's going that direction, together a lot more often. And you have regular interactions. You're able to check in on each other, and you're able to have a conversation and go over things that may be troubling. So it is, I find them invaluable, and my clients that do them find them invaluable, and I'll show you some ROIs on them a little bit later in the broadcast. It promotes two-way feedback, and I think that if you're going to have a one-on-one meeting with people that work for you, it is essential that you ask for feedback coming back your way. If you're not doing that, I think you're really missing the boat. You really need to get feedback coming back the other direction. You'll find out what's frustrating them. You'll find out what you're doing that's helping. You'll find out what you're doing that isn't helping. And I will tell you that there's no other way to do it correctly than a one-on-one meeting. And we're going to tell you how to kind of run these a little bit. It also is a great way to release frustrations. You know, we get these frustrations. We're frustrated about something. I've got an employee of mine that's not working out well. I've got some other issue. And the bottom line is we can have these conversations, and we can talk about it. And if a project isn't going right, it's an opportunity to get that on the table. If some other issue I'm having isn't working right, it's an opportunity to get that on the table. So I will tell you that they're a great way to keep the frustrations to a minimum, and to certainly tackle them when they come along. We stay clear on our tasks and our priorities. I had a client just a couple weeks ago tell me that in their one-on-one with their boss, they discovered they'd been doing something or taken on some task that the boss didn't want him to do. They said, how did you wind up with that? And he kind of told him, he goes, no, I don't want you doing that. I want someone else to do it. And I think that this is really, really important, that we have these to be able to stay clear in our tasks and the priorities. You know, I always like to say that a boss has the right to set your priorities for you. And that's fine and well. And oftentimes we're in a job where our boss gives us a load of things to do, and we set our own priorities. And if we do it without the direction of our supervisor, sometimes we can have a different idea of what's important than they do. So I think it's absolutely critical that we talk about the priorities and what we're working on first, second, and third. And things change, and I think that's another important piece to this, that things do indeed change, and priorities change, and the supervisor comes out of a meeting and their priorities have changed, so now their priorities have changed, so now your priorities have changed. The company's priorities have changed. So this is an absolutely great way to make sure that, you know, what I have number one on my list is also number one on your list. And what you have number one on your list is number one on mine. And we can negotiate that. We can have disagreements about it, but that's the way to do it. And that's how we should do it. I think it keeps development moving as well. You know, one of the things that I get frustrated with is people get to work and they've got a ton of things that they have to do. And then all of a sudden, you know, they're not looking at their development, and they're not looking at the development of the people that work for them. Part of a one-on-one, especially with someone who's managing others, should be, how are you getting along with your direct reports? What's going on with their succession planning? What's going on with their development? Who needs training? Who needs some, who is struggling? Who is hitting it out of the park? Who's doing a great job? Let's make sure that we recognize that and talk about that. And I will tell you that there's not a lot of other ways to go about doing this. And so what's your developmental process? What are you working on? I remember having a one-on-one with my boss, oh my gosh, 30 some years ago. And he told me he was going to a training class. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I thought that was kind of interesting that he was going to a training class. But the bottom line is he needed training too. And what was interesting is he came back and told me what he learned and some of the things that they went over. And I can tell you, I think that is a number one priority. So it keeps that development conversation rolling in all directions. The next thing that it does is it maintains two-way transparency. And I will tell you, the more that you get together and have a conversation, the more you're going to be transparent with each other. I always err on the side of transparency in everything. I think that our employees should know what we're doing. They should know what the financials are. Even if you're a privately held company, you can certainly scrub those down and crunch them to some sort of a report. Some companies, they don't want to share anything at all. And I just have a fundamental disagreement with that. I think that they're not really understanding the value that can bring. You know, if you're trying to hide things, people are going to pick up on that. And I will tell you that it can maintain a great two-way transparency. Now, not only on company priorities, but it also maintains a two-way transparency just on what you're struggling on and what maybe your boss is struggling with. Maybe there's a transparency between the two of you that needs to occur, or there's some other issues going on that needs to be brought to the top of the table. So I will tell you that it's absolutely critical that we maintain this transparency, and this is one fabulous way to do it. All right, what else? Well, you know, this may very well be one of the biggest issues right here. It keeps employees engaged, and if you've been living under a rock, you don't understand what that means. We've heard about it, we've talked about it, probably ad nauseum, in fact, of employee engagement. However, the results are in that disengaged employees can create an enormous amount of problems for our company. And if you read anything coming out of Gallup, they probably are the leaders in studying this phenomena of employee engagement and what it is and how to test for it and so on and so forth. And if I have employees that are disengaged, I need to get on it and get on it right away. I know that I do some coaching with an organization, and we can pick out disengaged employees in a heartbeat. Why? Because we're having regular one-on-one meetings with them. And they're going a couple different directions, and they're picking up on it. And you know, you say, well, Ned, how can you tell that? Well, if I have you come into our one-on-one meeting and you're totally unprepared for it, that's a sign that you're disengaged. Now, it might be a one-off for sure, but if it's a repetitive thing and you're just not into it, there's a couple of things that I might be asking. Have I not made it clear to you how important these are? Well, I probably have if I'm passionate about it. The other thing that I probably have maybe missed on is maybe you're just disengaged. Maybe I've done something to upset you, and we can certainly uncover that. But keeping employees engaged is absolutely critical, and this is a huge engagement tool. And the thing I like about this is it's free. You don't have to put it on the budget. Now, it's not free in time. It is free in money, for sure. You do have to put the time out. But when people say to me, Ned, I don't have time to do this, what it means is, what you might as well be saying is, this is not a priority for me. I don't find it valuable enough to do it. And I would say, well, okay, then just be honest about it, but don't tell me you don't have time to do it. And I get that pushback all the time with clients when I say, are you doing one-on-ones with your direct reports? No, I don't have time for that. Well, okay, oh my God, that would be an hour times 8. That would be 8 hours a week, or 8 hours a month, or 8 hours every 2 weeks, or whatever the frequency is. Well, okay, think of the alternative and how much time you're going to spend cleaning up a mess because you weren't on top of something. Now, if you need a little bit of push to decide that this is helpful, it doesn't take much Googling to understand that Adobe reported a massive reduction in voluntary turnover. Massive reduction in voluntary turnover. And all they did was start one-on-one meetings. The other thing that Adobe did that I think is important to put out is about the same time they started the one-on-ones is they did away with performance evaluations. That's a whole other conversation. We could have a great debate over whether you should do that or not. I happen to be in the boat that thinks that they ought to hit the trash can, but you can't do that. You can't throw them in the trash can without a replacement. Well, Adobe replaced it with one-on-ones, and it changed everything. It just changed everything. It was amazing. GE reported a really large increase in their production. And these are two well-respected companies that measure everything, and they're highly successful. And they're hard to argue with their with what they've been able to get accomplished with doing these. Now, what is a one-on-one, and how do we conduct them? And as people say, the devil's in the details. Well, let's get into some of those details and kind of understand really what we're doing here. There's only a few simple rules that we need to follow to conduct a one-on-one, and we're going to go through some of those. Make them true appointments with a standard frequency. Now, I get asked this all the time. Is it once a week, once every other week, once a month? And I'm going to say, I don't know. I'm going to say that once a week seems like a lot to me, and more than once a month doesn't seem like enough. So where does that leave us? Somewhere between once every other week and once a month would be my recommendation, at least to get started and decide really what works best for you. And I don't care if you're doing them virtually or you're doing them face-to-face, the same thing can occur. The technology is there and it's inexpensive, and we should be able to do that easy. So having a travel schedule or something like that is not an excuse. They need to be on your calendar. They need to have appointments set, and you need to have a frequency set to them. And clearly, you're going to move that a little bit. If you're going to do it once a month, and let's say I have 4 direct reports, we'll just make this some easy guerrilla math. So I do Bob on the first week of the month, and Sue on the second week of the month, and Mike on the third week of the month, and Mary on the fourth week of the month. That's a great way to do it. And you've got one-on-one meeting a week. If you had 8, obviously you would double that. If your span of control gets much above that, then I would say, do you really need to have a one-on-one with everybody? And do you have the right ratio? And that becomes, again, a whole other webinar. But bottom line, there needs to be some frequency. And I'm going to just kind of throw the gauntlet down is somewhere between once a week and once a month. And you kind of have to figure out what's going to work for how many people you have and how long you think you're going to take. Generally speaking, once they really get rolling, they're somewhere between 45 minutes and an hour, maybe an hour and a half from time to time if you have a lot to talk about. But I would certainly block out an hour, and I would have it on a very standard frequency. This wouldn't be a catch as catch can. Oh, gee, it's been 6 months. We haven't done a one-on-one. Well, guess what? You're actually not doing a one-on-one. So that's kind of the simple rule number 1. Here's the simple rule number 2. You have to have enough structure to have meaning. So I'm going to share with you a sample agenda that I share with my clients, and if anybody wants it, I'll be glad to email it out to you later. And it'll be in a Word document, so you're certainly welcome to modify it as what would need be for your particular situation. But with an agenda, you have enough structure that it has meaning. People know what they're going to talk about. They can come in prepared. You can be prepared for them. You know what you're going to talk about with them. So you need to have enough structure that it has meaning to it. Now, here's the other side of that coin, right? Not so much structure that important items don't come up. I've seen them so rigid that people walk out and say, gee, I really wanted to talk about this, or I really wanted to talk about that, or I really wanted to talk about that, and I couldn't get to it. And I couldn't get to it because we had all this structure and there wasn't enough free-flowing time in there to say, what else you got? What else is going to come up? Oh, I can't talk about that right now because we've got this other stuff on our agenda. So don't structure it so deeply that other important items can't come up, and you can't just have a conversation and just a, hey, how's everything going kind of conversation. I think that's really important. So that's really, there's got to be a balance between the two. And that's kind of the balance I try to strike. Ned, it's a little too much structure. Okay, back it off. Ned, this was kind of, didn't have enough to it. We kind of got in there and we muddled around. Well, then tighten it up a little bit. This is a work in progress. It isn't something you're going to get perfect the minute you start doing them. You're going to continue to evolve them. It should be a living document. It should be something that you do make changes on over time. Use some form of agenda and keep notes and keep a file. It doesn't have to be fantastic. I'm going to share a very simple one with you towards the end of this webinar, but there should be some form of an agenda so people have an idea what we're going to talk about when you walk in the door, and we're ready to go with that. And keep some notes on it. And again, it doesn't have to be typed up. You don't have to, you can just keep your notes and then you drop them in a little folder and then you have them for the next meeting. And you say, hey, we talked about this last time. How did it go? Where are we? What problems? So on and so forth. So I think it's really, really important that you do have an agenda. It should be written down and you should keep some notes and just toss it in a file. You don't have to do anything else with it. It's great historical to be able to look back over 6 months or back over the year when if you're doing an annual performance review. And you can kind of look through that and say, yeah, we talked about this and gosh, it seemed like that project took them forever to get done and that one they knocked it out of the park. It gives you some working notes to use later on, and also to refer back, at least back to the last one. So I think that's a really important piece to it. The other thing I think it does is it sends a message to the individuals. This is important, and I take it important, and you should too. And if you're not going to take it important, they're not going to take it important. The end of meeting should have some critical questions. And I don't care. You can adjust it any other way you want. Some form of these critical questions needs to be a part of your one-on-ones. I think it's essential. Now you can modify them a little bit as is, makes them unique and genuine and sincere to you. However, I will tell you, it is absolutely critical that you have these questions. And here they are. What feedback do you have for me? So I'm the supervisor. You're the direct report. We go through this one-on-one, and at the very end, I ask some form of the question, what feedback do you have for me? Now I can, and I'll show you a couple of different ways to do this. You can kind of build them into the agenda if you want, but I really think this should be a standalone question or something very close to this. If this just is too hard to get out of your mouth, then come up with something a little bit different. And I think that's really, really critical. I know that I have a client who asked this, and she actually gets upset when they don't have feedback for her. She really wants to know how she's impacting her team, and she's genuine and sincere about it. And it's a safe environment to give her that feedback. And I think that's the other thing. If they give you feedback that isn't fantastic, they'll say thank you, maybe discuss it, take it under advisement, and do something about it. Or tell them why it's not going to change. Say, yep, you're absolutely right, that's not going to change. I had an employee give me some feedback that was less than complimentary about my attitude towards safety. And he was speaking for the group, he told me. And what that told me is I had not done a very good job of telling them why it was so important to me. So I called the group together and I said, look, I've been given this feedback and I want you to know something. I'm not going to change. I'm not going to change. Thanks for the feedback. What it tells me is I haven't told you why I'm not going to change and why I'm so adamant about it. And we had a really serious, long conversation, and I told them some things, and they understood me a lot better. And you know what? Their safety shaped up, and then I didn't have to be a jerk. And that's what I told them. I said, when you guys start doing it right, well, I don't have to be a jerk. When I walk out here in the shop, and you got a drill in your hand, and you're drilling metal, and you've got safety glasses on, I won't say a word. You don't have safety glasses on, I'm going to say something. So it's just that simple, you know. So it was important for me to get that feedback from him, because it wasn't that I was going to change what he told me, but I needed them to understand the why. And then we made steps to actually improve on the safety. This is another really important question, really, really important. What is the most frustrating thing right now with your job? This is absolutely a critical question to ask. I've had people tell me that their stapler doesn't work, their 3-hole punch is a piece of junk, that they were frustrated. They only had one computer monitor, and the kind of work they did, they could really benefit with two. I've had people relay stories that they've asked this question and their employees told them the copy machine isn't working right and hasn't for 2 months. And nobody had picked up the phone and called the copy repair place because it was nobody's job and nobody knew who to call. And it was one of those things that fell through the cracks. And so they got it fixed. And what I will tell you is oftentimes, not every time, but oftentimes, these things are usually pretty minor to you, but they're major to them. The staplers, the copiers, the 3-hole punches, the phone system that doesn't work, the nagging whatever, the issue with this, whatever it may be. They oftentimes are really, really easy to fix. And when you hear them, fix them and fix them very quickly. So this is a critical question to ask. Some people say, is every meeting too much to ask that question? Maybe, but if you take it off your agenda, then you're likely to forget asking it altogether. So I kind of recommend leaving it on and get people used to it. Oftentimes they're gonna, after 4 or 5 of these frustrating things are fixed, they're gonna come find you in the interim and they won't have it in the meeting because they won't hold it back. They'll say, oh, things get fixed around here, so I'm gonna bring it up. All right, sample agenda, what does that look like? So here's some elements, and then I will share with you an agenda that I share with all my clients, just so you can see what one looks like completely built out. But I want you to be really understand that you can adjust these any way you want. And that's why I give them to people in a Word document. Feel free to modify it. Kind of a review since the last one-on-one should be part of this. What did we go over last time? What have we gotten done to this time? What do we need to catch up on? Kind of where are we? I think that's critical. Current items, I think, is also critical. What's going on presently? What project are you working on? What problems are you currently having? It's what's going on in the moment. And then the next one is future items. So I like to say, there's like a 10, 30, 60 rule that's been floating around for years. And I think it's probably a pretty good application here. 10% of my one-on-one time should be about what went on since last time. That should be somewhat of a review. A little bit more time, a little bit, whatever that looks like, on current items, and a lot of time on the future. So if you were to take 10%, 30%, and 60% and break it down on a 1-hour basis, I've done the math, it's about 6 minutes, it's about 18 minutes, about 36 minutes, something like that. So it kind of gives you a sense of, if I'm talking the entire hour about what went on last month, it's going to be really hard for us to move into the future. And so I try to get a handle on that, unless we start to have other problems, and then we can talk about those. Development items. What development items do you have? What training for you? What are you doing developmental wise? Hey, there's an opportunity to run the Lunch and Learn next month. I think it'd be great for you to do that, to get up in front of a group of people and present on some topic, to go to a training, there's other developmental activities that organizations put on. So I think this is a really important conversation. Why? Because when we don't have it, it doesn't get done. It's just that simple. One of my biggies, I'm like adamant about this, is a wish list. I think that every manager should have a wish list for their department. I could probably do a webinar on the 4 different types of lists. In fact, I'm planning one. So the 4 different types of lists that everybody ought to have, one of them being a wish list. I find that what happens a lot is supervisors ask managers, they say, what's the vision for your department? And the manager says, I don't even know how to answer that question. I'm the shipping and receiving manager. What kind of vision could I possibly have? Well, the question is hard to answer at that level, because we think about vision, we think about strategy and where I want the company to go. We think about it really at the 40,000 foot view, and we can still think about it in our department. And a wish list is a great way to build a vision for a department. So tune in one of our other webinars and I'll kind of go over that in detail. And then the frustrations, which I alluded to earlier. And then obviously the feedback to the leader, which I alluded to earlier. Now let me share with you, where is it? Let me share, there it is. let me share with you the sample one-on-one that I have here. You know, again, you can modify this any way you want. It really doesn't matter. What's going well and what are you doing to maintain that? What can be improved? The name, the date of the person, obviously, and then notes from the one-on-one. And these can just be jotted down. These can just be bullet points. Don't overwork this or you'll stop doing it. What are you currently working on that's going well and what are you doing to make them successful? Okay, again, what is not working right now and what help do you need to bring that back on track? What is the most important 3 things that we should be talking about? Huge. And again, you know, on this one, I don't have much this time around. Things have been going well, and I just don't have a lot filled out when I came in to see, okay, great. Well, I got a few things for you and I to be talking about. So both sides of the equation fill this out, by the way. What have you accomplished since we last spoke? What is a developmental opportunity you're working on? Again, you know, that's kind of an ongoing thing. Yeah, I've got this training I'm doing. I'm enrolled in my MBA program or whatever it is, whatever it is I'm working on. What could you be doing about it this month? You know, and why do I ask that? Well, you know, my job is as a supervisor is to ask you these questions and help you stay on track. You know, I'm playing a little bit of the role of the coach here, if you will. What's the most important decision you're facing and how can I help with this? What is on your wish list? And there's that question that helps develop that vision for a department. I think it's critical that if they have direct reports, that they write their names down and what their current effectiveness, a 1 to 5, 1's not effective, 5's very, and what should they keep doing and how do they need to change or what do they need to change. This kind of helps get us into that mindset of a succession plan. Describe a decision since we last met and explain the basis and drivers for the decision. And then what's the most frustrating thing about your job right now? And then what feedback do you have for me? Is there a recent decision I made where I did not consider your drivers or input? Now, again, you can update this, you can change it, you can do whatever you want. So let me go back and share one last thing here, right here. Here we go. All right, conclusion. We're coming up on our 30 minutes and I promised to get you out of here on time. The most effective way to do it is just to do it. Amelia Earhart. Just get it started. I've given you the tools that you need. I'm willing to jump on the phone or answer emails if you have some specific questions. I'm willing to do that. Again, thank you everyone for being here. There's my contact information in the lower left-hand corner. If you know of someone that could benefit from this, feel free to send them a note and have them contact me. We'll have it up on our YouTube channel and it'll be available there. Again, free of charge. You don't need a password to get to it or anything else. If there's any questions, I'm certainly willing to take it. You can hit the question and answer and type your question in there. If not, we'll bring this to a conclusion. And thank you for your time. And anything else we can do to help you, we're certainly glad to do it. Okay, I appreciate all your time. We'll call it a wrap and talk to you later.